He said, I think people might be interested in some tips in how you transition from gaming to life, and also why exactly real life is more fulfilling than games. So we're going to start with the second question first. Why exactly is real life more fulfilling than games? And I'm going to answer this in a variety of ways. I don't know if we'll get to every single possible answer. There are there's so many different ways that I can answer this question. I'm going to appeal to logic. I'm going to appeal to intuition, um, and everything in between. So the first thing that I want you to consider is that for most people that play video games, they don't actually understand the gravity of what they're missing out on by they don't truly understand the opportunity cost of playing video games instead of doing other things with their lives. And that's because they don't understand the full breadth and depth of what is possible in life. For whatever reason, perhaps they were never exposed to certain possibilities in their life experience. Like, for example, for much of my life, like, I didn't realize what was truly possible because I just hadn't met the right people yet or seen them on social media and heard their stories. So I always thought that life was basically go to school, get good grades, get a good job, start a family, work your way up in the company, or move to a different company, maybe start a business. I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. And I figured that to start a business, you needed to be like an MBA type with a bunch of qualifications and experience and network and capital and all. Like it was a very one track, narrow, parochial worldview. And as I started, just exploring out of my own curiosity, reading other people's stories on social media, seeing the content that they were posting, I realized that there was a whole that that worldview was extremely lacking in its perspective. Like there is a whole world out there of adventure and mystery and magic, and the same epic quests, the same compelling stories, the same adventures, and that sensation, that feeling of something that's larger than life that I think a lot of people, speaking from first-hand experience, seek or chase within video games, is it's not it actually exists in the real world. And so I encourage anyone watching this to listen to stories of 15-year-old internet millionaires. There are people of all ages right now, from teenagers, elderly folk, and everything in between, making money online, starting businesses, traveling the world, hanging out with beautiful men and women, going on real life adventures, doing things that they actually care about, making more money, creating a life that they want to live. And like that's totally possible is what I'm trying to get at. And so I think the reason why a lot of people are so content to just play video games and go to work, come home, kind of rinse and repeat, is because they don't realize what they're missing out on. They don't realize that these things are actually possible for themselves as well. Or they choose to claim and believe that these things aren't possible for themselves because by doing so, they absolve themselves of responsibility. Because if it's not possible for a particular person to live a better life and to make XYZ things happen, then they don't need to feel shameful or guilty that they haven't already accomplished those things yet. Because that brings us to the second question, which is if you know what the fullness of life actually entails, if you know what's truly possible, if you know that there's more to life than what you're currently living and experiencing, you accept that, which that even getting to that point of acceptance is like half the battle, if not most of it, for many people. Then the only question that remains really is, can you do it? Right? And I'm here to tell you that you can. The two questions are kind of intertwined as well, I suppose. But that's basically what it comes down to. Do you understand what you're missing out on? Do you understand how rich of a life that you could be living outside of video games? How just best graphics in the world, right? Like, do you understand that? And do you think you're capable of doing it? So that's food for thought. I think, independent of whether or not you choose to quit video games, continue playing them, cut down on your time playing them, whatever, I think it's really important exercise for everyone to just flex their imagination for a bit, because the unfortunate reality is that very few people in the world actually allow themselves to imagine with no self-imposed limitations or restrictions, to dream as big as they want to dream. And the ones that do, and the ones that stick with it long enough, the ones that see it through and don't succumb to despair and doubt and, oh no, that's bullshit. Yeah, like that's for, rich and people that were born that way. Life isn't fair. Like all of that nonsense. The people that see it through are the ones that you see crushing it in the game of life. But most people don't allow themselves to even consider that as a possibility. And to be fair, to empathize with them, like it's very hard to see outside of your current situation, your current beliefs, your current perspectives, like your current worldview. It's literally a bubble of consciousness, so to speak. And so I think the best thing that you can do for yourself, regardless of who you are, what your goals are, is jar yourself out of that comfort. Like it's almost like a mental comfort zone, like or like a psychological environment, if you will. You need to shock yourself out of it, and it might be daunting and scary. Like you might experience culture shock, so to speak, but it's necessary in order for you to expand the scope of what you think is actually possible in life. This brings me to, there's so many directions I can go here. I'll touch on one. So the thing with video games, when we're considering, are video games more rewarding than real life or more fulfilling? Well, what is fulfilling to you and what is not is really up to you, right? Nothing in life has any meaning outside of the meaning that we give it. So if your goals and your aspirations are such that you're totally fine playing video games and settling for less in other areas of your life as a natural consequence of playing video games, and this is not unique to video games either. Whatever you have to do, you're sacrificing something else in order to do it, right? If I chose to read a novel for 4 hours a day, there'd be an opportunity cost there as well. So as long as you're cool with that, if that's truly what you find fulfilling, then more power to you. But I think that inherently, intuitively, there are a lot of men who play video games who know that this isn't it. That there are things that they were born to do, things that they still need to discover about themselves, things that they need to learn in life, problems to overcome, things to do so that when they take their last breaths while they're on their deathbed, like they don't experience any regret. They can look back over the course of their lives and breathe a deep sigh of satisfaction and pride and be like, I truly gave it all I got. Like I did what I wanted to do. I said what I wanted to say. I didn't leave anything on the table. And that's like, I think this is, if you've ever heard of the phrase memento mori, it's the idea that we're all going to die someday. You should remember that daily. I do this a lot because it really reminds you that all the problems whatever problem you're currently facing, not to trivialize what anyone is going through if you're watching this, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not actually that big of a deal. Any risk that you're wary of taking isn't actually that risky because you're going to die someday. That's guaranteed. The one thing that's guaranteed in your life is that you're going to die someday. You're going to lose everything anyway, regardless of what you do. I think it's more risky to not truly go for it and grab life by the nuts than it is to stay put and take the safe route at the expense of your joy and your fulfillment. The last thing that I'd want, like, and I've experienced this to a lesser extent already. I talked about this in the posts and the stories that I shared yesterday of how when I was 18 I had all these business ideas and these dreams and these things I wanted to work on, and I told myself, yeah, but I'm young, I just started college, like I can wait. I have time. I'll just like enjoy what I'm doing right now. And I said the same thing when I was 22 and I was starting my first job, and then before I know it, as if with the snap of a finger, I'm waking up and I'm 25 and I'm like, holy fuck, where did the time go? 7 years just flew right by, and I'm exactly, I have more money and I've grown in some ways, but fundamentally, like I still haven't actually moved the needle at all on the things that I truly want to work on. I'm still the same person, and I was just as ready back then as I am right now. The only difference is I've let 7 years come and go without actually making any progress. And that's a really tough pill to swallow and to get over. There's a lot of guilt and shame there to release. So you can get out of your own way and recognize that what's done is done, and the only thing that you can control is what happens from here on out. So that's a situation that I don't want to anyone else watching this to end up in. I don't want you to wake up 5 years from now, or even a year from now, 5 years from now, 10, God forbid, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, and look back at your life or at that past period of time and be like, fuck, I just pissed it all away. I allowed myself to cower and to sink into this place of like, complacency and comfort. And I didn't actually live my life. I kind of just existed, and I did what I needed to do in order to feel as little negative emotions as possible. But I didn't actually live a well-lived life. Like, I don't want anyone to ever have to go through that. And so I think that's the fundamental, boogeyman under the bed that's awaiting a lot of men who play video games and who will continue to play video games at the expense of actually getting started on what would gratify them long term. And I think that to some extent, playing video games, it's going to be inevitable. I remember when I used to play World of Warcraft, you would always reach a point. Like our favorite part of playing the game was always when a new expansion launched or a new patch dropped with new content, because especially when WoW Classic came out, we were all starting from level 1, from absolute scratch. And it was this huge race to max level. And then when you get to max level, you have all these things that you can do. PvP for the first time, farm the gear, get your best in slot gear, tackle the raid, whatever. But eventually you get to a point in the game where you're doing what's called raid logging, which means you only log, like there's nothing else to do. So you just log onto the game when you need to like raid once a week, and you can't raid more than once a week for each raid, and then you log off because there's nothing to do, or you do it again on another character, but you're just replaying the same thing from a different perspective. And I see so many people posting about how there aren't any more good games out there nowadays. Like the developers are just shit now, and they've reached the end of all the games that they can play, and there's this other game called Life where it's never ending. There's constantly new content. There's literally more things that you can possibly do than you can fit into one lifetime. And if this, again, you need to think big. You need to tap into your imagination here, because it's such a suppressed. It's your greatest tool. It's your greatest fucking superpower. Everything that you see in the world began in someone's mind. It began as a fruit of their imagination. And it's just like it's like a muscle that's atrophied in the minds of so many people nowadays, because they just take everything they see for face value, and they look at life, what they think is life, and they're like, yeah, this is it. One of my favorite quotes, Steve Jobs, life quote. It's by Steve Jobs, and the quote is, everything around you that you call life. Quote. The quote is, Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. Like, so the point of that is to hammer home the fact that you could go, like, there's just so much you could do. You could become a businessman, you could become an art, like, you could do all of these things in succession, if in mix and match, and uncover ancient mysteries, like, you know, there are real life raid bosses out there waiting to be confronted, and I don't necessarily mean in a physical or a violent way, but problems on a big scale to solve. There's no world peace yet. World hunger is a thing, you know. There are all kinds of different problems to tackle, waiting for heroes to tackle them. The thing is that such a huge portion of, I guess, what you could call like heroic capital, of smart, capable, hardworking men of all ages, is being consumed and held hostage, so to speak, by petty pleasures and escapes, video games, Netflix. Not that Netflix is categorically bad, but you get my drift. Like social media addiction, like people aren't actually going for it because they think that life is what it is, and they don't realize that the one thing that they can control, and really the only thing that matters, is the fact that they have ultimate agency over what they do, and that from this muscle of the imagination they can design or write whatever beautiful story of their lives that they want to write. So, circling back to what I was talking about earlier, life is a never-ending game, infinite number of quests, infinite number of social interactions. Like, this is where the intuition comes in, and I'm tempted to just be like, why is real life more fulfilling than video games? Because it just is, because it is real life. And some internet philosopher might call me on that and be like, yeah, well, that's, there's no logic to that. You can be just as gratified by playing video games. You can have a sense of community. You can have a sense of purpose. You can have a sense of accomplishing things, and a sense of belonging. All of that. Probably pull up Maslow's hierarchy of needs and thrust it in my face and be like, yeah, well, I can get all of this from video games. And I'm like, but are you really? It just fucking makes sense that if you're not actually living a real life, that you're not experiencing the fullness of what life has to offer. If you're living by proxy, if you're living by, if you're using this virtual world and this virtual avatar to simulate your own life instead of actually living it. This might require that some people actually leap into the unknown and overcome some of their fears and see it for themselves. Like, if you're a man, like, meet a woman who you love head over heels and go traveling with her and, like, watch that relationship blossom and tell me that it's not more rich and emotionally and spiritually than playing a video game is. Like, build a business around doing something that you care about, or just improve your life in such a way where you're making more money and you can retire your mom, you can pay for all her medical bills, you can provide for your kids better, you become a better role model for your children, and then they grow up to live better lives instead of watching you waste your time and live like a shallow, feeble, cowardly existence, and then they take off after that and they have their own trauma and bullshit to reckon with in the future. There's the one thing that I will say too, and I've talked about this in prior content pieces, where I don't think video games are inherently good or bad. I don't judge myself and I don't judge anyone else for playing them or having played them. I'm actually grateful for the experience because it's taught me a lot about how to live an extraordinary life, because we express ourselves in a way that is uniquely powerful and limitless and free of all this internal bullshit when we play our favorite video games. Like, none of that comes up when we play our favorite video games. It only comes up when we're approaching real life. And one of the things that I'm grateful for my time gaming is the sense of wonder and awe that I experienced navigating a universe like World of Warcraft. The music, the scenery, like the lore, the the feeling of, adventuring through the world and beating bad guys and being on this epic quest with people that I loved, basically, all my guildies and all that. Like, it was a very mystical experience to me. And that flow that I got into playing the game, and that sense of purpose and all that mystical aspect to it, is like, I didn't know that existed, I think. Like, when I started playing the game, that was something that I experienced for the very first time. And now the thing is that it's just not sustainable, clearly. Like, I appreciate having discovered it through playing World of Warcraft, but I can't spend the rest of my life just making just enough money to get by, and then, like, chasing that constantly in WoW and future expansions and other games. What WoW taught me is, like, yeah, I sound kind of like a broken record here sometimes, but we are literally living in, like, this giant movie with all the shit that's going on in the world, with all the things that we could make of this gift called life, this miracle that we're even here in the first place. And I just intuitively think, and perhaps you do as well, if you quiet down your life and listen closely enough to, that, yeah, there's more to life than just playing games. It is quite, it is kind of just an appeal to intuition. At least this answer is. And I want to talk about intuition for a sec too, because I think a lot of people have totally lost connection with their intuition, to their detriment. Like, if most people, or many people, will wake up and immediately start consuming something, Netflix, music, YouTube, you're on Discord talking to your buddies about, what you're going to do next in the game, or you immediately log into the game, or you immediately go to work, and then, like, just no one, not a lot of people create time for themselves to simply be, to simply listen to what comes up from inside, to listen to that voice, that intuition that's always guiding them. It's just things in life become so loud that you can't actually hear it anymore. And when you quiet down your life enough, you start hearing it again, like, you find that you know exactly what to do. You know exactly what you feel called to do. You have all the answers. They've always been there. You just weren't able to hear them. And so, another practice I invite you to do, another exercise, if you will, is, like, quiet down your life periodically and reconnect with that intuition, and tell me that it's not, you know, pulling you in a direction away from just playing video games all the time. I think another thing to touch on as well is, the thing about video games is that they have all the good with none of the bad. They make you feel a sense of achievement, of purpose, and of all these things without actually, any pain, any difficult things that you have to confront besides learning how to get good at the game. And that's not, like, the reality of life is that good, bad, happy, sad, joy, or pleasure and pain, joy and misery, like, they're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. And when you're embarking on a quest to create a better life for yourself and to realize your dreams, like, you're going to experience all these negative emotions inevitably. But that's what makes the good ones so sweet. The good ones, like, that's, if all the world knew was happy, 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 then we wouldn't be able to appreciate the happiness, because we'd have nothing to compare it to. and then we'd probably get miserable as a result. Hmm. I remember I played right before I stopped playing video games. I played got into Final Fantasy 14. Incredible game, incredible story. Probably the best video game story I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I played the most recent expansion, Endwalker. And there's this part in the story where this dude creates kind of like an automaton or just this being. He creates this being. Her name is Medion. And he sends Medion to travel the universe to distant galaxies and stuff like that and ask various civilizations what the meaning of life is. And it's a loaded question, right? Like, one of the societies that, or one of the planets that Medion encountered had successfully eliminated all suffering, all bad emotions, like there was nothing bad, everything good. But they had become so apathetic and miserable. They'd lost like the will to live basically because it was just happy, happy, happy all the time. And as a result, they created this monster or this beast, and then had the beast like extinguish them from existence. They basically did like it was like a mass suicide deal. So I found that really interesting part of the story. I found that a really interesting part of the story because I think it demonstrates that to truly like live life and experience it in its fullness does not mean like a well-lived life does not mean that it's only win-win-win, happy, 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 like good, 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 all ups, no downs. Like, because you're not actually experiencing the full spectrum of life at that point. They're like, you got to appreciate the lows as well. You got to appreciate, the dark nights and just the the difficult times, because the heartbreaks, like the everything, you have to appreciate it all because it all belongs to the same spectrum of life. It's all part of life. It's what makes like life so sweet, or even in a kind of tragic existential way. Because even when you're sad, even when you're going through pain, even when you're doing something that difficult that you got to do, but it sucks dick right now, you can at least take a step back and appreciate the fact that you're even experiencing it in the first place. That it's all just part of being human. And it's like it can be tragically beautiful in a very profound way. And I think that 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 fullness of emotions, that fullness of the human experience is precisely what's lacking in video games, because video games exclude that, right? If you die, you respawn and you try again. Even if like absolutely everything went to shit in a game, you could just play another one. You can create a new character. Excuse me. You could even change servers, find new friends. Like, nothing actually carries any weight because it's all just engineered to be all upside, no downside, and your decisions don't have consequences the same way that they do in real life. And some people might look at that and be like, well, yeah, that's why I play video games in the first place, Einstein. Like, it's because failure is such a fucking big deal in life, and there aren't takebacks and respawns and shit like that. But that's precisely what makes life so awesome, is that the things that you do actually matter. It's like that quote from Gladiator, the things that we do in this lifetime echo for all of eternity, or something like that. That, and then when Achilles talks about how the gods envy man, because, let me see if I can pull that quote up. Achilles quote. Yeah. The gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal, because any moment might be our last. Everything is more beautiful because we're doomed. That's a quote by Achilles in the movie Troy. I don't know if it's historically accurate, but it's that essentially captures what I'm trying to communicate, which is that our mortality and the that same brutal, unforgiving nature of life and of the universe is precisely what makes it so profound and so amazing. And games just don't have that. Like, I feel like I could have summarized this entire video with a single sentence or with a couple by just being like, dude, really? Do you honestly think that video games could ever be as fulfilling as living a human life? Experiencing everything, the good, the bad, and still waking up and looking at yourself in the mirror the next day and being like, well, I'm still here. This is all just part of my story. And that's another perspective that you can take on this is you can view your life as a story that you're writing. Do you want it to be a shitty story? Why do you play video games in the first place? Like, one of the reasons is definitely because the story is excellent, right? Like, it wouldn't be fun if the story was lame, if the hero just pranced around or and did nothing, or God forbid sat in his room. Like, I think that's a wonderful analogy. Like, imagine if you went to play a fucking video game and the way that, like, the whole point of the video game was to play this hero, except the hero is sitting in his room on a computer and he's pretending to be a hero in a virtual world. Like, just separate yourself from yourself. Take a bird's eye view on yourself, a third person POV, if you will, and like, be honest. Don't no judgment, but just be honest. You don't need to judge something or someone to take issue with it or to disagree with it or them. I feel like I should take a step back and gather my thoughts. I think something else that I'll mention is that, and this is kind of tangential to the question of whether or not video games are more fulfilling than life, but like, just hammering home the reality of playing video games and the opportunity cost of playing video games. This is an unprecedented time in human history where it's even possible for someone to go to work, come home, play video games for a few hours and do the whole thing over and over again, and just assume that everything's going to be that way forever, and that it's going to stay the same. Is, I think, self-delusion, and it's quite dangerous because hard times will always come. Like, that the only another one of the only guarantees in life is change, right? And who's to say that the economy doesn't go to shit tomorrow? Who's to say that I don't know, civil unrest breaks out, something bad happens in the world, and now food's being rationed. Like, what I'm trying to say here I'm not trying to strike to fear monger or to spread paranoia or anything like that. But the point is, like, as a man especially, if you're not like, if you're doing pretty well but you're not thriving in your real life, and you're kind of just crossing your fingers and hoping and praying that everything stays okay indefinitely because you wouldn't be prepared to handle it if shit hits the fan. Like, I feel like that's a very insecure position to be in personally. Like, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that um, you know, I'm not prepared to care for my family and protect them, and to leave the country, overnight if I need to, and to, I don't have passports, so I'm just stuck. And if stuff goes to shit, I can't do anything about it. I just have to suffer it. Like, that is a very precarious situation to be in. So I think you're kind of just trusting that everything goes well, and hoping that nothing ever goes poorly. And yeah, I don't think that's a very responsible or realistic approach to life. Because as soon as it doesn't, you can't blame anyone but yourself. You didn't put yourself and your family in a position of extreme security and preparation. This is also I'm gonna reach out to some people who have like I think I'll take another stab at answering this question a few times in a few different videos in the future, and I'll focus more on just anecdotes and people's personal stories. Um, I'll mention I can talk more about mine, but I'll also bring on some other people that I've worked with, people that I know who have stopped playing video games and have started, thriving in their real lives, and you can hear from them directly. Like, is real life more fulfilling than video games? Another and I'll mention something that someone told me. I won't say who, but he used to play a lot of video games, and the thing that he told me that the thing that like made everything click, and that made him just want to never play video games again, was like he started getting laid more, with like good looking women, and he just saw how whenever he played video games more, like he didn't have as much time to be a man basically, and to be romantically active, and also it was losing him respect um, from the woman that he was involved with, because I mean, and there's like, I'm sure some people would hear that and be like, yo, fuck them. They don't, like, that's his hobby. He can do whatever he wants, and sure, he can do whatever he wants, but they can do whatever they want too. And if their natural reaction to this dude, playing video games all the time is disgust, then you can't fault them for it. Like, women want to be with the man. They want to be with a dude that's on his purpose, who's thriving, who knows how to conduct himself, how to operate in the world, who's unfuckwithable, so to speak, has all the shit in order. Like, and if you're not that guy, because all the time that you would otherwise spend becoming that guy, you're pouring into video games, then again, that's your decision. But you got to own it. You got to own it with with all of its consequences. So keep that in mind as well. And that's the thing, is like, I don't tell people, hey, you should quit video games. Like, video games bad. Never play. I just try to be extremely honest with them about what they're missing out on and what the opportunity cost is. Um, I try to burst that bubble of isolation, and clue them into like what the true consequences of their actions are, and let them come to a conclusion themselves. It's like, okay, you're playing video games 4 hours a day, but your marriage is stagnant. Like, your kids don't actually have a role model. Um, they're kind of just, everything in your life is like going with the flow, and you're basically keeping the whole thing from exploding just enough so that you can play video games every day. But the real thing that you look forward to every day when you come home from work is playing video games. So whenever you get a day off of work, whenever you have a weekend to yourself, whatever, what do? You just play video games all day. Like, you're just holding everything together by a thread. Tell me that you're fulfilled doing that. Tell me that none of that haunts you. Like, with a straight fucking face, tell me that none of that raises any like pangs, or pangs of like discomfort, and doubt and trepidation and fear, and a sense of, what the fuck am I doing? Or, you know, I don't know. Escapism. What's another angle that we could take to talk about, are games more fulfilling than life? Or rather, why exactly is life more fulfilling than video games? I feel like the best answer is just an intuitive, concise one, man. Like, if you knew that it was possible to do and be everything that you are doing and being in a video game in real life, and people are gonna be like, yeah, well, I can't, I can't be a wizard in real life. I can't like throw fireballs and fly and shit like that. I'm like, yes, thank you. I didn't know that. The point is like, if you know, you could create your own epic real life story. You can find missions to tackle. You can become stronger in real life. And you can literally imbue your real life with all of the qualities that you're seeking in games. And it's going to be like 10 times more, infinitely more rewarding because it's actually for real. It's not this curated, carefully engineered environment with a cushion underneath it 24/7, ready to catch you when things don't go well. What's another way to look at it? You need to look beyond just yourself and think about what like life is fundamentally about. Look even at the heroes of your favorite video games, your favorite stories, your favorite movies. Like they're not heroes because they only do shit that they want to do that feels good in the moment, that is self-serving. The entire reason that they're heroes is because they help other people. It's because they use their God-given gifts and talents and their own interests and proclivities to serve other people. Like that is those two things are they're not mutually exclusive. In fact, they're intertwined. They require each other. And they're synergistic because you can't be a hero without having people to help. You can't like what would World of Warcraft be if we weren't saving Azeroth, right? Like the only reason why defeating the Lich King matters is because if you don't defeat him, he's going to turn like the entire world into the scourge, right? You're saving them, you're helping them. And so this question of, well, is real life more fulfilling in video games, or how exactly is it? It's like because in real life you can actually can help people. And then I'm sure some people will say, yeah, well, I can stream and like help people that are depressed and give them a laugh and brighten up their day and stuff like that. And that's kind of fair. I guess what I'm trying to get at is when I hear the question, it sounds like it assumes that fulfillment is something that you find, like, or rather you evaluate how fulfilling something is based on how much of like an itch it scratches for you, so to speak. But I think fulfillment comes largely from serving other people on a grand scale, or as much as you can, basically. It can come in small forms of service, but this I yeah, I'm gonna have to write a lot about this. This was an excellent question. But that's another good point though. It's like when we say that real life is more fulfilling in video games, that's not to say that just like if you quit video games and then you settle for a meager existence in real life, that all of a sudden it's going to be better. It's probably going to be shit. I think the point is that really going after it and living your life to the fullest, living your life as if you were playing a video game, as if you were the main character of your own epic story, will will always be more fulfilling than simulating that or settling for an imitation of that in a video game. I think I'll talk about, unless I think of something else, I'll talk about another perspective on this question that I just remembered. And it's the notion that we each have something that we were born into this lifetime to work on or to fulfill. It comes like I first heard about this, I guess exploring Vedic astrology, like Indian astrology, or just certain like mythologies around the world that they had this notion. Oftentimes, it would involve the idea of reincarnation, but it's that this idea that like you are the way that you are because there are certain things that you wanted to accomplish within this lifetime, and that really resonated with me. I don't know for certain whether or not it's true, but I found it very powerful to think about, and I entertain it, curiously, because why not? Because I look at myself and I look at like my own inclinations and this drive that I've always had to seek something like beyond life almost, and to aspire for something greater and to just go really fucking hard, I guess, at whatever I do. And then I discovered there were another word for these types of practices of is metaphysics. It's seeking to understand the fundamental nature of an individual, their strengths, their weaknesses, their tendencies, their predispositions, so that armed with that self knowledge, they can live their lives in better harmony with like who they are at their core, and and what they sought to accomplish when they landed on the planet. I find that really interesting. And I don't find it at odds either with the notion that you could become anyone that you want to be. I think that's absolutely true. I think you'll find that life is uh, full of paradoxes and contradictions, and this might be one of them. Full of double standards, even, where it's like you can become anyone that you want to become. You can be anyone you want to be, but you, at your core, there is like a certain person that you're going to tend towards. And really, this life and going on the hero's journey and evolving as a human being is about like becoming more and more of who you already are, of who you really are, if that makes sense. And so it's more of a returning to yourself and a rediscovering of yourself than anything. And I brought all this up in the context of this question because if you if you entertain this idea, it means that there is something that each of us is like predestined to focus on in life. Certain places where we're supposed to grow, challenges to overcome, and a rediscovering of ourselves to be undertaken, right? So if we play video games at the expense of fulfilling uh, that predestiny or that destiny, so to speak, then I think the consequences could be grave. And this is why, again, this might sound a bit woo-woo, but I find it very interesting to entertain out of curiosity, out of a what if type of place. This is why the idea of reincarnation intuitively could make sense to me, because I look at people, some people, and I look at everything that their lives could have been, but something went wrong along the way. They were called to do something and they ignored the call their entire lives, and it didn't hit them until eventually towards the end of their lives they realized how much they fucked up, and they're overcome with regret and despair. And so it would make total sense for me that someone like that, if the soul exists and doesn't actually die when the body dies and it goes somewhere else, then it comes back in another body, like it would totally make sense to me that someone in that situation would come back and over again until they finally got it right. until they finally did what they set out to do. And like, because they had this thing that they needed to get done, and they weren't able to get it done in that lifetime. They weren't able to overcome, the obstacles and the challenges that they needed to in order to complete that quest. And perhaps then there's another quest or many different ones and to complete afterwards, and this just happens for infinitely. So all this to say that whether woo woo or not, I do entertain the notion that each of us is here for a reason, and that there are certain things that we were born to do, that we were destined to do, and it's different for each one of us. And I think video games come at the expense of truly seizing that duty almost, that destiny. And speaking of duty, there was somewhere I was going to go with this. I'll rattle off a few quick comparisons here. So, like, what do you think is more? And when I make these comparisons, they may not sound mutually exclusive superficially, but think about them. So, like, for example, what's more fulfilling to you? Becoming the most just like unstoppable, accomplished, glorious, greatest version of yourself, and then being able to set that kind of an example and be that kind of a role model for your children who are going to learn more from you by watching you than they are from what anything that you could ever say, right? Is that more fulfilling than playing video games, or is playing video games at the expense of becoming the best possible man that you could be more fulfilling? And I'm sure someone would hear that and be like, "Well, I can play video games and still be an excellent father." And perhaps you could on paper. Some maybe in practice, like, could you really? Could you really though? Could you like? You're essentially teaching your kids to. It depends like on what you consider an excellent father to be. If personally, when I have children, like my entire life will be devoted to best equipping them to live the most extraordinary lives possible, because I feel like that's my duty as a man and as a father. And I would not be able to look myself in the mirror or in the eye, right? Comfortably and peacefully, knowing that instead of teaching them more lessons, instead of taking them on more adventures and spending time with them and all of that jazz, that I was playing a fucking video game. I would feel so ashamed. And it's not even funny. Like, I'd feel incredibly remorseful. Food for thought. Or like, 30 years into my marriage, I look back, I wake up one day and I look at the true state of our partnership, and it's just utter complacency. We've become roommates. Like, the sex isn't hot anymore if and when it actually happens. We don't go on dates. The romance is dead. Like, we're basically just hostages to each other. Or, I mean, even in a less extreme version of the scenario, just you become comfortable. The romance dies. Like, you're kind of just existing with each other. And then knowing that I'd spent thousands of hours over the last few years playing video games instead of like truly embracing my relationship. No. And that's another note too. I mean, this is a little bit tangential as well, but I talk to a lot of women who are married to gamers. I talk to a lot of partners of gamers, particularly men who are actually addicted to video games, and it's just an utter bloodbath, pure devastation, and destruction. Marriage is collapsing left and right. divorce, broken families, even in partnerships that haven't ended yet, like there are kids going up to their mothers and like expressing extreme resentment and disdain towards their fathers because their fathers aren't actually being fathers. They're just doing the bare fucking minimum or less sometimes. So I don't understand how anyone could possibly think that fixing that and actually being the most amazing father you could be would not be more fulfilling than playing a video game. I think we've beaten this question 6 feet under. And I think that this question is also best answered in the form of a dialogue, or a Q&A with, where someone is asking questions. Either I'm asking questions to someone else, we're asking questions to each other. So hopefully I can get someone on here. We can do that. I'll answer the second question that I was supposed to answer. I'll be quite concise as well. We've been going for an hour here. Advice on transitioning from games to real life, or focusing. Let's look at the way he asked this. He said, yeah, some tips on how you transition from gaming to real life. So let me take a sip of my coffee. Think about the way that you approach your favorite video game. I will give you an example. When I play World of Warcraft, this might be because I have thousands of hours in it and I'm already really good, right? But there's no self-doubt, there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no fear of failure, there's no self-judgment, there's no internal resistance at all. I know it. I know exactly what I need to do, and I just do it. There's this compelling story behind everything that I do. There's this universe that's immersive, that's drawn me in, that's giving me a strong sense of why. Why am I doing this? I understand why I'm here. I have a sense of belonging, both in that world and also to the community that I'm a part of, like the guild that I'm in. And I have these larger-than-life quests that really, strike a chord emotionally in my heart that I'm working on, that I'm on, right? That I'm working with other people to solve. It's all go, go, go with no breaks. Like, the only limitation on myself is like how good can I get at the game and how much can I play it. I don't ever want to take a break from it. Like when I'm playing WoW, it's been months. It's been like a year actually. But when I'm playing WoW, like I don't. It's kind of like all I want to do, and this may just be a me thing, because when I find something that I really love doing, I just want to do it all the time. But I call it loving obsession, where you love something so much, you believe in it so strongly, and it's so fun that you just want to do it all the time. And you have to take breaks to eat and socialize with people, keep up your relationships, whatever. But this is always the number one thing. And so the biggest way, and this is more of a principle than anything, is the biggest way for you to transition from games to real life is you got to figure out why you can operate so effortlessly and frictionlessly and limitlessly and relentlessly in video games, in your favorite video games, and why you can't do that in real life. You got to see where the two diverge, or differ rather. So, for example, maybe you procrastinate a lot in real life, but you don't procrastinate in games. Think about why that might be. Maybe it's because games provide you with tons of clarity, right? You have a list of quests that that you need to complete at all times. It tells you exactly what order to do them in, etc. So you need to fix that for yourself in your real life. You need to create a vision, reverse engineer from that vision what your plan must be, and then break it down into bite-sized pieces so that you always know exactly what you need to be working on. And you need to also reckon with the fact that not everything is going to be the same as it is in games, right? In real life, your plan might change. You might try something and it doesn't work out and you need to adjust and course correct. The point is, video games, success versus time. It's very linear. It's always going up and to the right for the most part. Life is not always like that. Sometimes you need to hit absolute rock bottom. Sometimes like you'll make 20K in 1 month, then you'll make $0. Then you'll make 100K afterwards. Like it's totally it's not set in stone the way that video games are. I think if I were to answer this question more succinctly, let's take a step back. So the difference between a video game and real life, the primary difference is that we need to kind of design the game of our own lives. We need to figure out what exactly we want to accomplish. What's the vision that we're striving to realize? This is kind of like designing the end game of a video game, and then what's the story that we want to write with our lives as well? What's the sense of why that we're imbuing our lives with? You need to like basically define your vision for the future as vividly and clearly as possible. You can start with concrete things like, oh, I want this much money and I want, this house and this place and this partner and all that. But you can also get more kind of not abstract, but like meta with it. Excuse me, more macro, and be like, what is it that I want to accomplish? Again, like if I were writing my life as a story, if I was the same way that the story of a certain expansion in World of Warcraft is already written, right? The heroes, the adventurers, like do this, they do X, Y, Z, they clear this raid and or these, they vanquish these enemies, and then finally, they kill the Lich King, and like this, whatever. What is your story gonna be? It may change. It may not be absolutely set in stone, but you got to know where you're going. You got to have at least some kind of idea, some kind of X marks the spot on the map of your life, because otherwise, you're not going to have any direction. What's that quote that's like, if you don't have a dream, you're going to build somebody else's, right? So that's the basic premise. You have to design the game that is your own life. And once you have that vision detailed extremely vividly and well, you need to, from that, reverse engineer who you must be. Who's the character that you got to play in the game of life, who effortlessly and naturally achieves or lives said life. What do they think like? What do they believe? What do they look like? How do they talk? How do they walk? What are their habits? All of that jazz. And then you have to figure out how to become that person, or then you have to become them. Because if this is truly the person, the version of you who naturally and effortlessly achieves their desire, like the vision that you outlined, then the more you can become them, eventually reality will catch up. And then, like I was saying initially, like 10 minutes ago, you need to figure out how your perception of life differs from games. And some of this is going to be approaching life the way that you do games, in terms of how unapologetic you are, how you don't procrastinate, you don't have discipline or motivation problems. Why that is the case in games and not real life. Maybe it's a lack of clarity in real life. Maybe it's a lack of meaning, of a compelling purpose, or a story, or a sense of why, right? Maybe it's you try to do it alone in real life. You don't have a sense of community. You're not surrounded by like-minded friends who have the same goals and aspirations. Like this is like trying to become if you try to become a millionaire entrepreneur, but you only hang out with people who want to get absolutely shit-faced at the bar like every Saturday, you're going to sink down to an average of those people. Whereas in a game like WoW, for example, if I'm in a guild with hardcore players, like we're all pushing each other to be excellent, and that propels us further than we would have gone by ourselves. And by the same token, if I'm in a shitty guild, then it's going to hold me back. But if you're watching this from the future, I thank you. I appreciate you. I hope this was valuable, interesting, entertaining, and I'll see you soon. If you have any other questions, just message them to me. Just message them to me. I'm all ears. Anything else that I can help with, I'm looking forward to it. Peace.